Welcome to the NC DWI Guy podcast, where defenders of the Constitution assemble to prepare for courtroom battle and firm owners gather to develop marketing strategies that will revolutionize the practice of criminal defense. Here's your host, the NC DWI Guy, Jake Minnick.
Hello, fellow freedom fighters, and welcome to another episode of the NC DWI Guy podcast. Today, we have a very special guest on the episode. A colleague, close friend, Jody Lanier is joining us for the podcast today. Jody came to Asheville and started a thriving traffic ticket firm here in the Asheville area. Was right from the outset somebody that struck me as somebody that was into kind of the business of law, into marketing, how to grow a law firm. And recently, and I think we'll spend a good bit of the episode on this, has transitioned his practice out to Colorado. And so that'll be interesting to kind of talk through Jody about that. But Jody, we really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I'm excited to have the conversation with you.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor. Appreciate that.
Well, I think it would be helpful, Jody, if you could just kind of tell our audience kind of when you started practicing, what that looked like in terms of developing your firm, and just give a little bit of background about your practice.
So, as you know, I was a second career lawyer. So
Right.
I went to law school, 35, 36 years old.
Right.
So I already had a family, I already had a mortgage, I had all that to worry about. And I was like, and everybody tells you, you know, you don't go to Harvard, you're not going to get a good job.
Right.
You're going to struggle. You're going to, you're going to do good to earn what a teacher earns. I mean, I literally had a lawyer tell me that when I was studying for the bar, and I thought, gosh, everybody's so depressing about this profession.
What kind of law did that attorney practice? Do you remember who that was?
He's a criminal guy in our area.
Okay, interesting.
That's the first time I happened to meet him at Starbucks. I know him well now. I won't disclose his name, but he's been in it for decades, and that's what he told me.
Huh.
He saw the Barbary book. He said, "Are you studying for the bar?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Well, you'll do good to earn what a teacher earns." And I thought, I hope not, because I got some loans I need to pay back. Yeah. And so my mindset, I came from the IT industry where we had pretty good hourly wages or salaried wages, right? And
how long did you do that before law school?
I did that for 12 years.
Okay.
And I found kind of a niche in that business where I worked in healthcare IT.
Okay.
They have a specific set of needs and protocols, and that was my business. So
okay.
But going in, the point is going in, it was like, I can't take just any job. I need to do well. So I had a fire under my rear end. I got kids to feed, mortgages to pay. Yeah, that is
good motivation.
Yeah, other people are counting on me. So I got to start brainstorming and figuring out how I'm going to do this. And so one of the first things I did is I picked a town that was bigger than the one I grew up in, which is where I was working. And I said, I need a town that's got more going on. And,
right.
Asheville has a ton of lawyers, but what people don't realize, they have a massive tourism industry.
Yep.
Massive.
Yep.
And the number of people who are there on any given day, the population's multiple times what it actually is.
Yeah. And I think, it also just because of the fact that you don't have any law schools that are terribly close. I mean, Wake is about 3 hours plus away. Yeah. Obviously Charlotte was the closest school at the time, and that's gone now too. So, I mean, there's not, you definitely have to move here in order to set up shop. So you either have to get a job or, have some sort of a connection point to Asheville, or just like you kind of be like, this is a good place to settle down. But, I think it does have, for a larger city, maybe a smaller competitive market, because you just don't have people that go out of law school and are just like, well, I'm just going to stay put where I've been living here, because there's not that same competition.
Yep. And you have to, the thing is, I grew up in a real small town, and I watched people struggle. The best job in town was the hospital or the government. Right. Most guys would start, a deck building or a lawn business. There just weren't many opportunities. So I knew going in, when I get this law degree and I pass the bar exam, I need to be somewhere where there's more commerce flowing, so to speak. And so my mind was geared towards that immediately, because, like we said, I had a need there. But then you have the other aspect of it is you don't know what you're doing, right?
Right.
So and ethically, you have to be competent. You can't just open up shop and take cases and not know what to do with them.
Right.
That's not good.
Which there doesn't seem to be a great solution to that. I mean, it's kind of like if you're going to open up your own practice out of law school, I mean, I guess you just kind of feel your way through it, but it's always been a weird rule of ethics, that kind of competency, because there's very little that law school and the bar exam actually prepare you to do practically, right? Like, I mean, in terms of actually handling a case, it's kind of like, well, yeah, I went through law school, but I don't know where to take this ticket I mean, even something simple, I don't know where to take this ticket. I don't know what the options are in terms of outcome and how that is going to impact somebody's driving history, whether their license is going to remain in place. I mean, that you just have very little to go off of.
And they terrify you in professional responsibility. They terrify you. And when you're fresh out, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to get a bad outcome and get this, but when I was finishing up law school, I found an article. I guess I can say the guy's name because he had an article on like MSNBC or something. There was an article about a local lawyer in Raleigh. His name's Damon Chetson. I don't know if you know him.
No, I don't.
I don't really know him, but I saw the article and it talked about how he came right out. I think he went to UNC law, but he quoted in the article, he said everything they teach is virtually useless for running a practice and business. It virtually, you get all the theory and how to write a paper, and they kind of teach you how to speak and that kind of thing.
Right.
But you can't. That doesn't make the business run. And and he went out on his own. So I decided to call the guy, and I looked him up on Google, and he talked about that. He said, Google is all I use. It's all I use. AdWords, Google. I don't use the yellow pages, none of that. And so this guy's interesting. So I called him up. And he talked to me for a good 10 or 15 minutes. And we talked about that. He said, the first case I took, I think he told me it was a B felony, sex crime. And I said, are you out of your mind? You took that right out of law school? He said, look, first of all, get over that. He said, you got your license, get over it. He said, associate somebody that knows what they're doing.
Yep.
Even if they take, even if they take half the fee or maybe more, who knows? You're learning how to do it. You're getting paid.
Right.
And he told me about how much money he got from that case, even after he paid the experienced person their part. And I was like, wow, that's a good idea. And so, and I never ended up having to do that. I started off with little stuff, worked my way up. I was in Superior Court for a while.
Right.
But then found that I enjoyed that traffic court aspect and found that I could create like something that would run like a clock, so to speak.
Yeah, it's much more business oriented district court than Superior Court. It's much more of a volume practice that can be systematized and duplicated than Superior Court. Yes, and there's an old saying: you make your name in Superior, you make your money in district. That's a great. I've never heard that before. That's I like that.
An old lawyer told me that, and it's true. This prestige is up there. How good can you lawyer? Go to Superior Court. We'll find out.
Right.
How much money can you make? See you in district.
Right.
So, and I hope that doesn't sound bad, because it is important to be a good lawyer. It's not just about making money, but you got to have that part. You got to you have to want to be a good lawyer and get good results. Yeah. Not just money. So.
Yeah. But I think that I don't think that those two things are mutually exclusive. And in fact, I think that they should be much more combined in a lot of ways. We have this kind of like Venn diagram that we do at the office, where we basically say, on the one side, the best cases go to the best marketers. So even if you're a terrible lawyer, if you're a great marketer, you're going to get cases. On the other side of the Venn diagram, or in the other circle, we have clients should have the best attorney involved on their case. And we try to like kind of overlap those. And in the sliver, it's like, that's where we want to be. Mitiglaw, we want to be in the middle of those two things, so that we can be best suited to help people, but you're not going to help somebody if you can't get them to call you on the phone. Like, I mean, it just doesn't work. So I think that a lot of time that's where I always kind of point to whenever I hear somebody saying, well, you know, this is a profession, not a business. That's not what the clients think. I mean, you know, they're calling the first person that comes up on Google or, you know, based on a referral, but it's not because you're the best attorney. Nobody knows that until, you know, very few people know that, right? Like, I mean, they got to find you. They got to find you. So if you think you're the best attorney out there, you're actually doing the public a disservice by not getting your name out there more and getting in front of people so that they can have the option of hiring the best attorney in the market.
Mm-hmm. I will say, in a small town like the one I grew up in, Lexington, the barbecue town, if people are listening and know about it. But anyway, now in that town, we had legacy lawyers.
Right.
You have that everywhere.
Right. Oh yeah.
But there were just fewer people, fewer lawyers. And so, you know, probably the yellow pages and word of mouth is huge. I'm sure
huge in
everybody knows. Like I just had my divorce. We took them to the cleaners.
Right.
You know,
right. Yeah.
You were represented by such and such. Yeah. She's great. She's awesome. They all know who it is. And we had a DWI guy who was super well known down there. I don't know if he still practices, but it's funny because he was so good with constitutional arguments, you know, stops, arrests, things like that. He was so good at it that everyone thought he was just paying off judges and troopers. They couldn't understand how he was getting cases tossed. They didn't understand enough about Fourth Amendment, and they thought, well, I don't know. I know he charges a lot of money.
Right.
He was charging $5-6 grand back in the late 90s.
Yeah, right.
Which in that area is a hefty fee. You know, if you're the CEO of the hospital, if you're a doctor, that's the guy. If you get impaired driving,
right.
And they knew. But in a place like Asheville, you've got so many people in and out, they don't know who to call.
Right.
You know,
especially like you said, with all the tourism that's going on here. I mean, that's a third of your calls is coming from people that have had no interaction with the city and will likely never again, or at least on a very limited basis.
Exactly. May never come back again. Yeah. So, and they don't know who their friends and family and all this have used for years. They don't know. So they have to find somebody. So yeah, if you can put your face in front of them and be a good lawyer on top of it, man, that's the key.
That is the key. Yeah. And I guess, you know, in terms of how you kind of started then growing in Asheville, was that primarily at first through Google advertising, or kind of how did that look in terms of how you practice?
Yeah. So I had IT background, so I had done some web development. So to save money, I decided to develop my own site. And I knew just, you know, from the IT industry, a simple website's fine. I mean,
it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just if you can give people good information. I found that building my site and giving them good information. And when I started out, it was really good because a lot of the information I was giving them, I had to look up because I had just started. So not only was I providing the public with good information, I was learning.
Right. That's awesome.
I built the website. And so you give them that, and people say, well, don't give them all that. No, tell them everything, because they're still super confused. Like, how is this going to work? I don't understand. What do you mean? They still need you. You give them all the information, they still need you.
Yeah, you and I have talked about that before. I think that information is so critical in terms of trying to talk to a potential client, because they're going to find that information out there somewhere. So you might as well find it on your website. It's not as though, I think that the mindset is, don't share this because you're going to basically put yourself out of business. No, like that information already exists out there. They can find it somewhere. So you might as well be competing for that attention where they're going to look, because they're going to find the answer.
They love to see you on a video. They love to see you talk. They're like, oh, okay. You know, I've had people watch my YouTube videos in the jail. Right. I didn't know they let them use their phones in there. But apparently when they're in the holding area, they still get to. A lady watched one of my videos on impaired driving back when I was still into that a lot. And she watched it from the jail, or maybe she had just been released. I don't know which, but she watched.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that stuff, you need to put it out there. But so I did that, I developed that. And my wife actually thought it was crazy. I was sitting up till 2 a.m. developing my website. And she's like, you need to just get on a suit and go out and meet people. I'm like, I'm going to do that, but I want to get this up first.
Right.
And so I got that up, and then I went out and I put on the best suit I could afford, the tie, everything. I think that's really important too. Why not go into district court and knock people out?
Right.
Why not? Look, it's an unfortunate reality that people are attracted to attractive things. It's just reality.
Right.
And I need all the help I can get. So
I always tell clients that when we walk into the courtroom for sentencing, I'm like, nobody is ever going to get mad at you because you came overdressed to court. Nobody will ever get upset.
Let me tell you, judges appreciate it. If you're sitting there presiding over district court all day, they want to know that you respect the forum and you dress appropriately. That says something. And I do. So I do that. And I've had clients. Now, I kid you not. I've had clients. I can't remember which courtroom I busted into one day. Well, let me say this first. So I did the website, put on my best suit, and went in and started shaking hands. How you doing? I'm Jody Lanier. What's your name? I'm such and such. Nice to meet you, Mr. Such and Such, Miss Such and Such, whatever. I was real overly respectful.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get to know everybody. I approached and met every judge, shook their hand, let them know they were going to be seeing me. Who you working with? I'm on my own. They wanted to know all that. And so when I mess up, give me a break.
That's right. Yeah. No, absolutely. Go in with that polite persona from the outset. You can make more mistakes.
And I was lucky. I had a couple of older and experienced lawyers who noticed me right away, shaking hands and saying hello. And they took me under their wing, not as an employee, but just as, well, let me tell you, here's what you need to do with this. Here's who you need to talk to for this or that. Here's how you handle this and that. And they gave me a lot of invaluable information. There's always a handful of guys and ladies at that courthouse who are going to help you. They're not trying to hide it.
The defense bar is such a blessing on that front in terms of having people that are willing to take a lot of time out of their day sometimes to just kind of walk you through the process. I mean, that's one of the great joys to me of being a criminal defense attorney is that I know when I walk into the courthouse, nobody is trying to file sanctions against me just because I'm breathing in the courtroom. Everybody's on your team. Everybody's willing to talk to you. So it's a real blessing on that front.
Yeah. And there's mean ones too. Yeah. You know it as good as I do. And you know what? I find it cute because, and sad because it's a hard job. It's hard. It affects you all the way. It affects you all the way home. It affects you. Yep. It wakes you up at night thinking about cases.
Yep.
It's tough. And I understand why people are, in that, some people are just in that mood all the time. And what I did when I was new is I just had to be brave and talk to everybody. And I figured out who didn't want to be talked to.
Right.
And I left them alone. And that's what you do.
Yeah. I think that's great advice for young attorneys, because I think that people can be shy, and you just got to realize that when you go up and ask somebody for advice, they may sit there and bark at you, and that can be an immediate well, I'm going to go in my shell and just stay there, but just ask the next person.
I've had them. I've gone up and said, "Hey, how are you? I'm Jody Lanier. Nice to meet you. And what's your name?" And they say their name, and I start talking to them. And they turn around and walk right off. I've had them do that. I've had them do that to me. I had them do that in Mecklenburg when I started out down there. I was on a student license with the public defender down there to start with, and then when I got to Buncombe, I had some people do it. But I learned real quick they don't want to be bothered,
right?
And that's fine. That's their choice. So
thankfully,
there was tons of helpful ones, and that's what got me off. And I also Buncombe did something that's really neat. They did a mentoring thing. I guess they still do it, but they put a fairly experienced lawyer with you.
That's awesome.
And I met with this gentleman once a week, for a while. And then after a couple of months, we met maybe once a month. Then it was just a phone call. How you doing? You feel all right? You're not too depressed, are you? He checked on my mental health, and he would give me tips on how to get things done. Eventually, I figured out more about what I was doing than him. He was asking me questions later. Like a year later, he's like, hey, well, who do I need to see about this? And how do I do this?
And what a value then to being a mentor, right? I mean, it kind of works both ways. And that's the beauty of being a colleague, as opposed to seeing everything from this competitive standpoint or you're beneath me standpoint, because ultimately that person's going to be there to return the favor down the road.
Oh yeah, I've had a ton of people who helped me with. They'd be getting ready to do a DWI plea or something, and they're like, "Hey, A1. What's my minimum on that? What's the minimum on the A1 sentence? What's the least I can get out with?" I'm like, "Yeah, you don't know that."
Well, that's so true. I do that all the time with cases that I'm handling that aren't DWI related. I mean, there's just so many questions that you have to kind of be constantly trying to scramble. And I mean, if you've got people that are doing it every day right there in the courtroom with you, just ask. I mean, I've
already forgotten too. I said A1. It's level 2, level 1. What's the worst one?
You're right. A1. Yeah.
A1. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm thinking A1 misdemeanor. But anyway. No. Yeah, that's right. Okay. My memory did not fail me. So and it is tough. That's the other thing too. If you're running a general practice nowadays, God help you.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Because now that was super common in where I grew up in small town.
I was wondering, and I think that probably led to, again, in terms of being like the go-to attorney or group of like those kind of legend lawyers that you're talking about, where you're practicing in all these areas, it's even more easy to give a referral, because it's like, well, I got a DWI. Well, let me tell you who helped me with my divorce. I got a DWI. Well, let me tell you, the guy that got me this great settlement on it, because they're doing everything. And yeah, I mean, much more likely in a small town to kind of still find that.
Yeah. I had a criminal client once call me and right after we'd handled a criminal case, and he said, I got a divorce going on. And it was not a simple one. It was one where there was kids and and I said, look, man, I don't know anything about them. I mean, bar exam, what I needed to pass. Right. That was it. I've forgotten half that. He's like, I got $3,000 cash. I'll come give it to you. Right. Like, I told him I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah. And he still wanted to come bring me $3,000. I said, I don't even know what a fair fee is, and I can't take that from you. Yeah. I said, here's 2 or 3 names. So, I think it's important to try to find find a focus, a narrowed focus. They don't like us to say specialty unless we have an actual certificate. So I call it a focus,
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I think that is such again, in terms of trying to provide the best service to the client, that's really the only way that you can do that at this point, is to really focus in and niche down on something. Yeah. I mean, how quickly after you started practicing did you kind of think traffic and kind of criminal work, that's where I want to be? Was that kind of while you were in law school? Was that something that happened after graduation?
I wanted to do criminal from the very beginning.
Okay. Before you went to law school?
Yes.
Okay.
My mind's always been wired, for whatever reason, as anti-establishment. I've always had a problem with authority. I have a problem with it. Right. And I recognize that. But I thought a good way to channel that was criminal defense.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so, I mean, it's kind of like the people who are wired to be, who are police type people, really good, or DA type people. It's the ones who are, I'm never going to do anything but be a DA or a police officer, or whatever. They've got that opposite wiring. Right. And you need them. You got to have them. Right. So that's good. The good ones like that are there. And I felt like it was kind of the same way for me. Like, if I can be a good one, it's good. There's not a lot of people want to do that. Right. And
there's not. Yeah. I think that is such an important, there's all kinds of different ways that I think you can channel that type of energy, whether it's leading a public movement, or whether you're kind of going about it through a church group, or whatever it might be. There's different ways that you can kind of channel that energy, but certainly you need good defenders on the front lines that are able to kind of really take a challenge point and say the Constitution is being upended right here.
Yeah, it's going to happen, and that's how you keep it strong. The Constitution, everybody gets that question. How do you defend people who did it? Because we're charged with it through our Constitution. It's what keeps us free. I mean, it's simple. I don't care if they did it or not.
Right.
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
That's not my job. That's not my job to care.
I mean, if somebody was harmed, that's horrible.
Right.
From something they did, but I care about that.
Right.
But I can't let that.
But the prosecution should have to work for that conviction.
Yeah.
And if they're not having to work for the conviction, that's when bad things happen. So if the truth is that the conviction should occur, then hopefully the prosecution's doing a great job on it, and they're getting the conviction at the end of the day.
And I tell them too, sometimes you get cases where, I've had impaired driving clients who were significantly impaired and hit a pedestrian who was 3 times as impaired as they were.
Right.
So
right.
Who deserves to get the harsh end of that?
Yeah.
You got to get a little bit of I was driving, I blew a .11, but the guy I hit blew a .23 or whatever.
Right. Right.
I mean, so sometimes it's not just that your person that that's the whole reason we have the system in place. But so anyway, I was wired for that. And you'd asked me about advertising. I don't advertise. I don't do paid advertising at all anymore.
Right.
But I think when you start off, it's good, and I'll tell you why. Because if you use AdWords, maybe some other services, whatever, Avo, whatever, you can get your phone ringing, and that's great.
Right.
Psychological battle. If you're sitting there and the phone's not ringing, it's worth investing a little bit to get it ringing. But once you get, and once you get search engine optimization and you're just on Google when people look for certain things, that's free. And
I think that's such an amazing thing. If you think about what you just said, the mindset of having clients coming in the door, there is, if you're all about working on criminal cases, then getting them in the door, even if it's costing more per potential client to get them through an advertising venue, if you don't have anybody there, you got to get somebody. That builds confidence. Then in the courtroom, you start to kind of build your knowledge base because you're working on actual cases. It's easy to kind of like forget stuff that's happening in theory that you're reading about in a book. Once you start applying these things to a specific case, now I'm not going to forget that one, right? Like I'm not going to forget that particular stop issue because like it was real and I researched it and I argued it and it was a real thing. So I think that mindset is such a cool point in terms of like why to start out with advertising. So once you kind of shifted from advertising, what has that looked like, I guess, now in terms of your marketing strategy? So
now it's just keeping the search engine optimization. That's my primary concern. And and I think nobody knows Google's formula. But we have there are people in that industry who theorize about what matters.
Right.
Like we know good content matters because Google's goal, when you search for something, Google wants to serve a legit good result.
Right.
So if you're looking for lawyers, they want to give you a good lawyer. They don't want to just give you. And so I think reviews are real important. High ratings. That does several things. You're incentivized to do an excellent job because you want the 5-star review because that's going to make more people call you, and that's going to build your clientele and build your revenue. So that's
I think that one of the things that is important about that in terms of providing raw service is that most people that hire you expect to get 5-star service. They wouldn't pay you the fee that they're going to pay you unless they were going into it thinking this guy is going to provide 5-star service. So you actually have to provide like 10-star service to get a Google review because the person that you give 5-star service to is like, well, if that's what I was expecting, so why would I leave a review? It's like leaving a tip when you're not expected to leave a tip. It's why am I leaving a tip? I already paid you for this kind of service that I expected. So you actually have to like up the ante even more to try to convince people, okay, well, this was like an unexpected experience that happened.
Yeah, you gotta, and people, one of the things I do that's unique is And I have a totally different model. I want to keep things simple and basic because I can't handle it any other way.
Right.
So I do all my phone answering.
Right.
I return calls within the same day, almost always. I do all my phone answering, and people are thrilled to death when the face that they see on the computer answers the phone and immediately starts telling them what to do. They're like, whoa. And I get a lot of reviews on that. He answered the phone.
Yeah,
and told me exactly what I need to do, and then did it. And they love that. And I love that they love that because I like doing it.
I think that's a great message, again, to anybody that's like starting off their own practice. I don't have that model at the office where I'm kind of answering the phones, but I did that for a long time. I did that for about 4 years, and I got the same reaction. They were always super thrilled to talk to the person that was ultimately going to be able to handle the case. And then like calling in every time, they're like, I know I'm going to get to talk to Jody again. I know I'm going to get to talk to Jake again. And until just recently, the attorney in our Wilmington office, Gint, he would answer all of his own phone calls. And I agree. He got so many reviews that were just like, when you call the office, you're going to get Gint on the, like, it's just like, that's the kind of the major attraction. So I think that's a great signal.
That's easy for me though. And because I came from a blue collar background, I came from a working class background. My family worked in factories. My dad did have a professional, like what would you call it? Trade school. He was a barber, had a barber's license, but my mom was a high school dropout. Nobody in my family went to college. Yeah. So if you didn't do good on the job, you lost the job, and the lights went off and the food wasn't on the table. There was no savings account to back you up. Yeah. There was no family to back you up. And so
hard work and humility will go a long way.
It's crucial. And I'm still answering the phone at the barbecue restaurant I used to work at when I was in high school and college. Like, this is Jody. How can I help you? Place your order. I mean, it's the same. It's the same stuff.
Yeah, it is the same.
The customer service part, same stuff. Yeah. And when they're angry or upset about something, you take it. Yeah. You let them punch you in the gut and tell you off, whatever, and then you say, you know what, I'm sorry. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do to fix this. We're going to fix it. Because you're going to mess up occasionally.
Yeah. No, you are. And I think taking ownership of it and explaining when you have a potential potential conflict, when you have somebody that's angry about something, really kind of saying, here is, what we're going to do about this. I think that there's certain industries where I think that particular answer is unexpected, that they're kind of expecting you to just say, get lost. I'm not going to help you through this. Yeah. Get over it. We agreed to this, and like they expect a lawyer to be like, we signed a contract, right? Like,
So remember that legacy lawyer I told you about in my hometown, and I haven't said his name, so he probably doesn't even practice anymore, but he was known to be extremely difficult. Yeah. And I watched him in trial. He was an absolute trip. He would take these young DAs to task, and he used the vernacular, the colloquial. I mean, he was in court. There's a way. He'd get up, and he wore cowboy boots and a big old belt buckle, awesome. Like he was in Texas, and he'd have the Navy coat, and he would get up and say, I remember him getting up and saying, there's a way to introduce evidence, and that ain't it. And that's how he would respond to the DA's whatever they were trying to present and stuff like that. But when you call him, everybody knew, get ready to get cussed out and be called an idiot. But you paid the money and win anyway because he was so good. Yeah. And I always thought about that. I thought, man, imagine what a hero he would have been if he would have just been nice to people. Yeah.
That's so true. I think for some people that's a little bit of the persona. I've got the confidence, and I'm kind of the person that's got all of the right answers. So maybe there's some level of that, but I also think that you can get too big for your own good. And I think kind of having things that keep you humble, whether that's by accident or by design, is really helpful in terms of the customer service element, because just treating people like people is about the best thing that you can do for your business. Better than, any CLE you can ever take, better than any type of advertising you can ever purchase. Like just being a good human being is going to go a long way.
It's so easy. And listening to the stories. I know a lot of lawyers who cut people off. It just on a 15, 18 over speeding ticket. Everybody wants to tell me. It'll start off like, well, I was going down the highway through your town, and my mom was sick, and she lives up in Tennessee, and I was worried to death. And I don't ever speed, but I wasn't looking. I wasn't paying. And there he was in the dark. He didn't even have his lights on, and it just on and on and on. Yeah. And instead of saying, all right, shut up, what county, what speed, here's what I let them tell the story. I don't need to hear it. Yeah. But they want to tell me because it's so important to them. They don't think about, well, you've got 10 other people who called you today for the same thing. Like they think, oh, I've got this huge criminal case hanging over me now. These people have never been in trouble in their life. So I let them tell their story. It makes them feel good.
I think that's such a powerful thing. I was talking today with a couple of people at the office over lunch about, how it's just easy when you've done something for a long period of time to start getting into this, monotony of forgetting about the human experience that's happening on the other side of the phone call. You do DWI call after DWI call, and it's kind of like, okay, here's the sentencing structure. Here's what the game plan is moving forward. Here's how we're going to attack this thing. And, the same thing with a doctor, right? That's, kind of opened up somebody's insides a million times. Like it's just routine, right? Like there's no, it's not some amazing event that's happened, but if you kind of keep that ability to allow people to really tell their stories and connect on that level, you're in a very small class of consultations that person is going to experience. You have probably captured an incredible amount of clients that are just like, I'm going to hire this guy because he took the time to actually hear me through. And even if it didn't matter, I'd rather just be able to tell it to somebody and make sure that let them figure out it doesn't matter, as opposed to just being me cut off and not get the full attention that I'm trying to get.
A lot of these folks want me to know that they didn't mean to do it. Like, I really want you to know I didn't mean to do it.
That's so true.
I'm like, it's okay. Yeah. I'm still going to help you, even if you meant to do it. Yeah. But they want you to know that because they feel so bad, a lot of them.
Yeah, that's so true.
You can't take a person like that and be short with them. You gotta, they're worried. So that's important. Those people skills, if you don't have them, you got to get them.
Yeah, that's a great point. And again, even if you don't have people skills, how easy is it to just listen to somebody, right? You don't even have to do anything, say anything. Just sit there and listen until the other person has stopped talking and is like, I just want to make ssure you're still there. Oh yeah, I've been listening. That's all you got to do is just.
That's listen. The counselor part. I'm not qualified to give you real therapy, but to me, that's the counselor part.
I think it's incredibly important for people. I think even in terms of how somebody comes away from the entire interaction, even on something as simple as a speeding ticket, being able to kind of just infuse back into that person, like, it's okay, you're not a bad person, like, we all make mistakes, we all go too fast, this has happened to everybody. Like, as soon as they've kind of received that, there is a huge weight that you've just lifted off of that person's shoulders of like, okay, I can breathe again. Like, I just wasn't sure what was going to be the consequences. Like that idea of, I didn't mean to do this is such a weight.
Yep. And then and you're right. You get numb to it. Because I do, even now, I go, oh, that's no big deal. That's fast. Yeah. One of the DAs, I won't say, one of the DAs in our area said, my car idles faster than that. We'll reduce that for you. It's like, you don't know what I see. Yeah. I see people going 140, in their Corvette, and stuff like that. And you got it's cute when they get a little ticket and they're so worried out. And I always, it's funny because when I used to do Superior Court, the felony people a lot of times didn't care as much. I think we talked about
it's
that.
So true.
Just,
Your fifth drug charge is not the same as this person's first speeding ticket. It's not the same.
Man, I can't, you get the call. It's like, I don't think I'm going to come to court today. That's not an option.
That's so true. Yeah, that is so true. Yeah. Whereas the speeding ticket person is asking for the fifth time, you're sure I don't need to be there, right? Like, I mean, you tell like, I don't have an order for arrest.
Yeah. You got a waiver, you go in, they're sitting in the front row.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm here. Can I talk to the judge?
We just got off the phone like yesterday afternoon telling you didn't have to be here. I know, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, that is a funny phenomenon. But yeah, that's all I do, man. I did some paid advertising and then really worked on the SEO and the stuff that doesn't cost me that much now. And
except for time. And
then the customer service aspect. Yeah. I really want to build those reviews up. I want to stand out, and you got to give that's it. You just got to give that good service, man. And that's coming from that blue collar background. Yeah. Like I said, you didn't have an option. You got fired. If you didn't if you didn't provide that, you got fired, and then you starved. So.
Well, before we let you go, Jody, I've got kind of one other like topical area that I want to maybe shift to for, a few minutes. And that is just kind of your transition from North Carolina out to Colorado. So I think for many people, I've had numerous family members that have like tried to convince me to move to Virginia or, wherever it might be. My answer is like, I'm stuck in North Carolina. I'm not taking the bar exam anywhere else. I am not thinking about moving. And so you get this like mindset of, I'm here, I'm stuck. And so, talk to us a little bit about what the plan was moving out to Colorado and like, how long did you kind of think through that process and then kind of the steps that you took to kind of make that dream happen?
Sure. So I had Colorado on my radar before I graduated law school. Okay. For a number of reasons. I just like it. I like the territory. I like the mindset. I like the weather. A lot of people think it's horrendous winters, but it's really not. Right. It's just you take the snow in the winter, but then you don't get rain later. Right. I love that. It's dry. So because we like to bike, we like to ski, we like to get outside and run, and that kind of thing. So that was the lifestyle we wanted, which Asheville has too. But I don't know. I just got bored with North Carolina to keep it. Yeah, I wanted to do something different, and I talked my family into it. So with that said, when you pick another state, they're all different. Most of them don't make you take a bar exam if you have X number of years of experience. Usually it's 3 or 4 of the last 5 years of full-time practice, which you kind of just answer on an honor. Well, at least for Colorado, you say they look at your licensing date, and I guess you could get by with it if you didn't really work full-time, but you have to say that's what you do. You're supposed to be honest about it. So that's like the first requirement to do what they call, some people call it comedy or reciprocating, or here they call it on motion. It's an on motion admission. So, but every state's different. You just have to look at what the requirements are. Now South Carolina requires a bar exam. Let's see, California, Florida. There's 5 or 6 different ones. Right. Maybe, I think Nevada requires it. But Colorado, the only thing they made me do was, prove that I had practiced. You got to go through the whole character and fitness. That takes forever. It takes, if you want to do it.
So you're still doing the full, like, massive paperwork ordeal.
Horrible mess. Yeah, you got to do your whole credit history. Thank goodness I haven't ever been separated or divorced, because you got to document all that. I mean, you got to do it all. Yeah, you have to demonstrate that you've got the years of practice for whatever that state requires. If not, you're going to have to take the bar. Right. But once you pass that, you do the long, drawn-out character and fitness that every state makes you do, the enema, or what do they call it, the colonoscopy of your entire background. Like it's very, very intrusive, credit history, all that stuff. And so once you do that, the Colorado makes you take the MPRE, which I thought was weird. The ethics bar.
Yeah, that is weird. I mean, because that's the only thing that you would think translate. Like, I mean, it's not like that's really going to change.
Yeah, it's the same. But they make you do it. They make you do it within 2 years of admission, and mine had expired. That's an easy one, though. Yeah. You just study for a week or something, and you can pass that. So, and then of course, they get a lot of your money, and then you have to come out and do the formal swearing in, which during COVID they did via Zoom. I just swore in I think it was December 3rd, somewhere around in there. Okay. A couple weeks ago, I just got sworn in, and I'm looking to set up a similar type operation here, but I think I'm going to wait until our COVID issues are, spiked up just like North Carolina.
Yep.
And so I don't want to be going into the courtroom for unnecessary things, trying to meet people and do this. I'm just going to wait till that spins off a little bit. And I get my bar card in my hand, so I don't have to go through the shakedown every time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So I'm just going to kind of wait on all that to relax. But yeah, that's it. But you got to plan these things like you got to start on them a year ahead when you do it, because it takes a year to process easily. So
yeah, I think that's just such a cool thing to hear about, because I think for a lot of people it just seems very almost like impossible, but at least unrealistic to move, from one place to the next. But, there's no reason to feel trapped by your law license, right? Like, there's just no reason for that.
I don't think so. And, if you are in a pickle if you want to go somewhere like California that has by far the hardest bar exam in the country, because they grade it on a stiffer curve.
Right.
There's 8,000 to 10,000 people taking it every time.
Right.
And so it's a lot of notable people have failed that one, including there's a famous law professor who moved from a famous international, I can't remember her name, famous international firm in New York City, went to teach at what is the Stanford, the really, and she failed it. She wanted to get her license in California. She teaches the law there and she can't pass it. And it's, but anyway, those places is different. That's a different thing. You got to pass that one. There's no way around it. But if you're in a state that does reciprocation, I don't see any reason not to do that.
Yeah, it's such a I think just kind of looking into it and starting the process of seeing what would be required is just like when you have a client coming into the office that's trying to kind of figure out, where do I stand with all this, right? Like, am I going to lose my driver's license? Do I have to go to jail? Same thing, like just sit down and kind of start getting the answers to your questions and then figure out what's going to be next on the list. Because again, I know for me personally, that's been something. I don't have any interest in moving now, but a few years back, that was something that I had kind of thought about, and I was like, I'd never do that. That seems crazy.
It is, but and probably my wife was okay. She was kind of neutral on it.
Yeah.
She's like, if you want to do it, we'll do, let's do it. And I even asked my kids, they're older kids, 18 and 13, but I wanted to make sure they weren't totally against it, and they were fine. It was more my thing than anybody. Everybody else was like, yeah, we'll go. You want to do that? That's what we'll do. And, but for me, I enjoy that challenge. I think a lot of people love I've heard people say they love the anxiety of going to trial.
Right.
They enjoy that.
Yes.
They feed off of it. And for me, that's kind of like what this was. It's like, I like this. I'm not sure what's going to happen.
Right.
And I can thrive in that, in that gray area, like I need it. I need that challenge.
And it's an even bigger move, I'd say, on your end than most people that are, maybe working at another firm. And so they're trying to, kind of transition just the, kind of technician role from one place to the next, where you're kind of restarting your business. There's obviously a lot more development and that type of thing that has to go on. But I think that's such a cool testament in terms of like being interested in that unknown and kind of having this sense of adventure about the move, because there's the move and then there's kind of resetting up the business end of things in a new location. Yep.
And I have to start from scratch. We have municipal courts here. That's something we didn't have out our way.
Right. Right.
So I got to figure out that whole structure. And I'm beginning to learn. They have a similar structure here to North Carolina. They're stricter than in most states on traffic stuff, which means there's going to be mandatory appearance tickets being written. North Carolina, it starts at 16 over or whatever.
Right.
And people are shocked by that. But out here, it's like 25 over. It's a little looser, but similar structure. People don't want to sit in court all day, but the DAs are usually willing to do deals to get people in and out. And so, but it's different, but it's exciting. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I think that's just a cool thing for the audience to hear, to see that success story. So we'll definitely have to have you back on a year down the road or so and kind of see where the adventure has taken you at that point.
If I'm not on, it means it didn't work, probably.
No, that's not true. I'm looking forward to the next conversation, Jody, for sure.
Sweet. Yeah, me too. I appreciate it. This was fun.
This was fun. I appreciate you coming on. Hope you enjoyed today's episode of the podcast. If you did, please share the podcast with another freedom fighter in the criminal defense community, and be sure to leave us a rating on iTunes. See you next time.